we are on now, yeah. Apologies for absence, please. Sorry.
As well, please. Thank you. Councillor Evans, Councillor Jeffrey and Councillor Chris Jones, please.
Right, just move on. The green form is going round if anyone's got any interest to sign, please. I'll move on to the minutes of the last meeting held on the 3rd of October. Are they okay? Do we have a seconder, please? Thank you. The attendance matrix is just there for you to note. In regards to announcements, could I thank everybody for attendance, the Remembrance Sunday and service on Saturday and Monday of last week. There was a fantastic turnout throughout the borough, which is great to see, and a big thank you to everyone who organised and everybody who was involved in that, including the council staff who ensured that everything was in place for the event to take place with the road closures and cleaning of the cenotaphs. A big thank you to Councillor Linda White and everybody at the Loftus Social Club for working so hard to ensure we raised well over £1,000 at my charity night last Friday. It was a good night, and thank you to those councillors that attended and made a donation. I will be holding a Christmas choir concert on Saturday the 7th of December at St John's Church in South Bank, 6 o'clock till 8. I do hope you'll be able to come along to support the event. And it was also great to welcome the town twinning visitors from Troisdorf, Germany, to our area, including the 2 deputy mayors. I've also recently hosted 2 receptions to thank the many volunteer litter pickers who go out in our borough in all weathers. We're very lucky to have so many volunteers who show great civic pride in the area, so that was very good. Right, move on. Do we have any announcement from the leader, please?
For us or not? Yeah, it is. Firstly, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to pay my respects to Councillor Eric Jackson, was first elected in 2015 and came across Eric chairing the Labour group. He didn't suffer fools lightly. He was an exceptionally good chair, but a really a true gentleman. One of the very best gentlemen I've ever met. He represented Loftus with all his heart and soul. When he was mayor, I'm told he was exemplary, example for the council. So I'd just like to pass on my heartfelt condolences to the family and everybody who knew him, Mr Mayor. Okay. We usually have a moment where other members can pay any homage to them if they wish. I don't know if anybody else wants to, but tradition, we've usually had that.
If people want to pay respects, then that's not a problem. It's just that it's not something that we normally put on the agenda. So if anybody wants to come in and speak,
I'm happy to give way to anybody that might want to speak. That's served with Eric. Councillor Nightingale, I think.
I've got Councillor King first on here. Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Jackson was really, really supportive. He always turned up for everything, and he was really, really hard working. Something some of you might not know is he actually wrote a book called The Most Very Welcome Refugees, about a lot of the Polish that came over after the war and how they settled within our community. And through finding Eric's book, I've actually managed to send it on to copies of families that didn't even know they were mentioned, and they learned a lot about their heritage and tradition. There was just an interesting side, and he was very, very supportive of me during my mayor's term, always turned up for everything, and it was a pleasure to work alongside him, and best wishes and condolences to his family. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davies, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, well, Eric, as a fellow Loftus Ward councillor, I first came across Eric at the young age of 13 at one of his ward surgeries. I believe it was in Liverton Mines at the time. Chasing him up for a football pitch at Liverton Mines playing fields, and give him his due. He worked really hard for it, and about 2 or 3 years later, we managed to get that football pitch. Approaching 16, I think, was the next time I got back in touch with Eric after he did such a sterling job for me the first time. Don't know how much he'll regret this decision now by taking it forward, but it was about standing for council younger than 21, because believe it or not, you used to have to be 21 before you could stand for council at one time. Now Eric, along with the great Ashok Kumar, the MP for Middlesbrough South and East Cleveland, took that down to Parliament and obviously got the law changed so people could stand at 18. But definitely both of them probably would regret it now. Having seen me turn into the council chamber and annoy people to death. But other than that, always had a lot of time and respect for Eric, even though we're on the opposite political divide. Never ever had a bad word to say against Eric, and I don't think Eric had a bad word to say about anyone else either. So I've already said condolences to the family elsewhere, but yeah, just will always remember standing and being on the council with Eric from 2015 to 2019 in the Borough Council, and from 2007 on the Town Council as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Nightingale, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I knew Eric for quite some time on the council, and he was always absolutely genuine. He was well liked right across the political spectrum on the council, and was dedicated particularly to Loftus and to serving the people of Loftus and the borough as well. I think we could probably put Eric down as a model councillor for all the work that he's done, and he has been and will be sorely missed.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Once again, everybody, I've known Eric for 20 odd years on the Loftus Town Council, been sat with him. The man was a gentleman, a good councillor, did his work, went everywhere on public transport, didn't get taken here and there, driven. He got on the bus and came to meetings, whether they be here, there, everywhere. Well loved, well missed. So, God bless him, rest in peace. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I've got Councillor O'Donoghue, but is it Councillor White? The mic's been switched over, yeah? Thank you.
I just wanted to say that Eric has been there throughout my political career, and he has always kept me on the right track. Often I've been told off for speaking out of turn, or he'd have a quiet word with me afterwards. And we need more people like Eric to care about the community. He took a lot of, the community weren't always kind as they're not to as councillors, and he always was very kind and gentle with his responses, and I think we could learn a lot from that. So, and I just remember when I was elected, his health was quite, he wasn't well at the time, but he was delighted. He had a great big grin on his face, and he couldn't believe that we'd got another Labour councillor back in Loftus. So, he was one of the great people of the community, and I think we should all try and be a little bit more like Eric and be kind, and maybe gentle in our approaches, more gentle in our approaches. We can differ, but there's a way of doing it, isn't there?
Thank you. Leader, do you want to continue with your report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you everybody for the kind, respectful words. You'd be well missed. Just before I go on to the official announcements, I just want to mention something that took place this week. After the local elections in 2023, time goes by so fast, a gentleman from Skelton sat in front of me with a newspaper article from Fife. He said, multi-bank. I went, okay. He goes, I want to bring this to the region, and I just wanted to pay testament to the work of John McHugh, Councillor John McHugh, sorry, his tenacity and his drive over this particular subject, as the Labour group will pay testament to. We've had more updates than any other subject that the council do business on. The guy has absolutely dragged a marvellous facility to the region that's now going to serve families and children in poverty across all the 5 boroughs of the Tees Valley. I just think it's a magnificent achievement. Well done, John. I don't know if John could maybe say a few words on it. I'm sure nobody would protest against that.
Yeah, I'm gonna allow that. Seeing as the you know, it's going to affect and help all 5 boroughs. I think it's, you know, good that we make an exception here. And Councillor Q says a few words. Thank you.
It will be a few words. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Brown, for your kind words. But I really want to say personally, thank you to the council for supporting this project. And I'm just so pleased that I was there to see the Tees Valley Multibank officially launch into action against child poverty. The multibank, as Councillor Brown was saying, aims to make family life happier and more comfortable so that they can meet with confidence the opportunities in society and the community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
To the official announcements, I would like to thank everybody involved in the many remembrance events across the borough last weekend. It is it is vital that we never forget the sacrifice that all of our service and servicemen and women who have served their country with distinction over many years. Once again, the ceremonies in Redcar and Cleveland were well attended and well respected, and I would like to pay tribute to all those who give their time and effort to make sure that those fallen will always be remembered in our borough. A couple who fostered hundreds of children over nearly 42 years of caring have finally started a much deserved retirement. Janet and Neil Dewsbury from Liverton Marns have spent most of their lives giving children in need of help and support the very best start in life. Helping as many children is an incredible achievement, for the commitment over so many years is simply remarkable. Giving children the best start in life is a key priority for our council, and the Dewsburys have more than played their part in achieving this. So thank you to the Dewsburys. They were awarded MBEs in 2020, and their retirement was marked by a special reception with our mayor. I would like to thank the Dewsburys for all they have done and wish them a very happy retirement. Also honoured by our mayor were the people across our borough who make it a much better place to live. Around 80 litter pickers who give up the time to clear our borough of rubbish for no personal reward attended reception events. They are wonderful and selfless people, and I would like to add my thanks, along with everybody else in the chambers, I'm sure, for the time and effort they put into cleaning the borough of the blight of litter. Finally, it is excellent news that residents in Loftus, whose homes were flooded, have been flooded, will see measures to make their properties secure. The project, which is in partnership with residents, the EA and the council, will make 22 properties which are higher at risk from water levels in Loftus Beck safer from flooding. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Do we have any more announcements from Cabinet members? Councillor Quartermain, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And today I'm pleased to share some positive news that reflects both our commitment to supporting local communities and our responsiveness to the needs and requests of our residents, business owners and local representatives. Over the past few weeks and months, I've received numerous requests from residents, ward councillors and our 2 local MPs to bring back free parking in the run-up to Christmas. And I'm aware I have a question today also from Councillor Hart, and I trust this announcement answers that question. This asks that I go further than the 1 hour free parking already in place in Redcar and Gisborough, and Redcar, and the 1 hour free parking being ready for Gisborough. And I'm proud to announce that I'm doing just that. From Sunday 1st of December through to Tuesday the 31st of December, parking in selected car parks in Redcar and Gisborough will be free after 1 p.m. This initiative aims to attract shoppers to our town centres, providing much needed support to our local businesses during what we all hope will be a busy and successful Christmas period. The car parks affected in Redcar include parking spaces on the High Street, Station Road, Kings Street, Grafenberg Street, Turner Street and both West Dyke Road South and North car parks. In Gisborough, Church Square car park, Reed Terrace car park, Fountain Street East and West car parks, and Patton car park will be included. Patton Lane car park will be included into the scheme. Motorists need only park up to the park and pay and display areas after 1 p.m. and there's nothing else for them to do. Yellow stickers on the pay and display machines and information boards will make this arrangement clear. This action is more than just about free parking. It's about making a concerted effort to support our local economy, bolster our fantastic local shops, and encourage both residents and visitors to spend more time and money excuse me, in our town centres. Our independent retailers offer high quality gifts, services and experiences that can make the Christmas season truly special, and we want to make it as easy as possible for people to shop locally. I want to acknowledge the efforts of everyone who pressed me for this. Your voices have been heard, and together we are demonstrating our commitment to making this borough a thriving place for both businesses and shoppers alike. This is a great opportunity to support our local economy, spread some festive cheer, and make this Christmas season a great success for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other cabinet members want to speak? No. Right, just before I move on, Councillor Barry Hunt has asked me to mention that Zetland FM has been presented the King's Award, which is the highest award for a local volunteer group can receive. It's the equivalent of an MBE for an organisation. So I'd like to congratulate everybody at Zetland FM. Right. Any announcements from the Managing Director? Acting. Thank you. We now go to questions from the public, which notice has been given. So would you like to stand up? Yeah, say your question. Thank you.
On behalf of Redcar Model Boat Club, I'd just like to know what's happening with the pump and the electrics at the Boaton Lake, and henceforth will we ever see any water in it, please?
Thank you. I think that question's going to Councillor Brown because it's under your portfolio, yeah?
As I told you outside, Mr. Patterson, we're turning into a skate park. No, I'm only joking. and I'd just like to thank the Redcar Model Boat Club for the patience. I know it's frustrating when you guys, meet there so many times. It's from speaking to your chair as well. It's more than just actually sailing the boat. It's a social club. It's your interaction, and you can be rest assured. Now, I have before I read out where we are right now, I give the chair, yourself, a deadline of spring to have it fully where we want it to be, but that involves drawing in some funding from other pots and things like that. However, because I know how vital it is for you guys, we are working as possibly as we can to get a fill of water. Unfortunately, the surveyor engineer that went out identified a number of spots. I know you guys have got your theories on where the issues are, and you're right on some of them, but there is other cracks that have been found and identified. So we've already cleaned it, as you know. We've given it a good clean. It was filled, but you can see the water didn't last for very long. That wasn't the bung, which we also replaced. There was the sluice gate isn't watertight, and there's a number of areas that that's already been identified that do have cracks and are leaking water. Now, I do think both Labour, I'm not blaming the previous council, because the council before then as well, which was Labour, have put plasters on it for years. It's been leaking slowly for years, and that's slowly depreciated. So it's political. Well, it's not just political. It's as a member of the town, I want it right, and I want it put right. Hence why things are getting done properly this time. However, we are going to endeavour to fix the cracks and the sluice gate, get it watertight as quickly as possible, and get a fill of water for you guys, Dale. All I can do is apologise. However, it wasn't within my power 8 years ago to start the process when it should have been done properly. I can't help the way concrete depreciates. I appreciate your patience and the Model Club's patience. As I've been out to see you a number of times, I'm passionate about it, and we will get it right for you guys as quickly as we can. All right?
Thank you. Mr. Patterson, do you have anything else to ask? No?
Just one little question. Just why have we put a bung in the inlet pipe?
I'm not an engineer. I to stop water leaking out, I suppose. But I'll find out and I'll get back to you, Dale. All right. All right. Cheers.
Thank you very much. Right, move on to the portfolio holder, and it's Councillor Earl. Just to remind Councillor Earl, normally it's 10 minutes to present your portfolio. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll do my best. So this is my annual report to the Council as Cabinet Member for Health, Welfare and Housing Support, and I've produced a fairly detailed report there, setting out the main achievements for the past year, and I don't intend to read out the report or to go through these achievements in detail, but I want to concentrate on several of them that I think are very important. So first of all, Public Health South Tees contributed very significantly to the Joint Strategic Needs Assessment, which is an assessment of current and future health and social care needs of the local population. And multiple agencies and partners supplied information and content. The information in the JSNA, the needs assessment, was used to develop a local health and wellbeing strategy. And ours has just been approved, and it's a mission-based approach covering the whole life course from birth to death. And the purpose is to improve the health and well-being of the local community and reduce inequalities for all ages. It must align with the Council's priorities, and it does, of start life well, live and age well, prosper and flourish. And the missions have very ambitious goals, and I would say most of these can only be delivered by this Council adopting a health in all policies approach. The improvement of community health and well-being must be at the forefront of this Council's decision-making and delivery. There is a very determined focus on best start in life, and this is where I'm going to start. I'm very pleased to report that breastfeeding rates have increased. Breastfeeding is the cheapest and most effective way of giving an infant exactly the right nutrition needed. It also contains maternal antibodies, which gives the newborn protection against several diseases. We think this success is in part a result of the additional funding from the Family Hubs Transformation Programme, and this funding has been given to improve capacity in maternity support before and after birth, so that parents can have those very, very important conversations about infant feeding with health professionals. Our health visitors are also calling families in certain wards where breastfeeding rates are low to encourage and support them with breastfeeding. I am incredibly proud that this council delivered auto-enrolment for free school meals this year. It will save money for families, ensure children get a nutritious meal at lunchtime, and increase funding for schools. Before auto-enrolment, families had to apply for free school meals, but for whatever reason, we believe many had not applied. Auto-enrolment meant that families, or means that families don't need to apply. We do the work. It's our officers from the Revenue and Budget Benefit Service, Education and Public Health working together with local schools that have delivered this benefit to families that most need the support. Schools also benefit in that for each pupil receiving a pupil premium, each pupil receiving a free school meal, the school receives a pupil premium funding, and this pupil premium funding should be used by the school to narrow the attainment gap between children growing up in disadvantage and the national average. One of our health and wellbeing missions is to eliminate that attainment gap at age 16. This year's auto-enrolment was a pilot, but all those additional children enrolled will continue to have free school meals throughout their school careers. However, we as a council now we must plan for how we deliver that going forward. Children receiving free school meals are also able to take part in the holiday activities and food programme during the Easter, summer and Christmas school holidays. It's called the HAF programme, and in Redcar and Cleveland we have about 40 HAF providers, schools, charities, social enterprises and many local organisations delivering a whole range of activity programmes. The Department for Education target is that 20% of eligible children and young people access the HAF programme at each holiday period. Our programme delivery during this last year has consistently met and exceeded the DFE target. And last Christmas, our HAF programme was in the top 10 local authorities in the country for delivery and reach. We've also got young people, young inspectors visiting HAF provisions to assess and quality assure our programme and to look at ways to develop the programme, such as improving provision for children with special educational needs and disabilities. Moving on, immunisation. This is the tool to prevent many life-threatening illnesses such as measles, whooping cough and meningitis. Our immunisation rates, particularly for children, need to be improved. This is not a problem just confined to our local population. Vaccination rates have fallen across the UK and globally. We also have wide variation in vaccination rates between wards, adding to the health inequalities of different communities. So to push for increased uptake of childhood vaccinations in the first 5 years of life, we are putting in additional resources to engage with parents and carers about the importance of vaccinations and also publicising the potential to catch up on missing vaccinations before a child starts in reception class. The recent national measles epidemic was a wake-up call to action. In South Tees, we responded quickly to the threat by getting appropriate information out to parents, raising awareness of the issue, the importance of vaccination, and what to look for and do if you suspected your child had measles. We had no measles outbreaks in this borough. We're also working on increasing the uptake of adolescent vaccinations by identifying the barriers stopping pupils getting these vaccines, which combat diseases such as meningitis, whooping cough, tetanus, polio, and the cancers in which human papillomavirus is thought to play a major role in that cancer development. We had a trial of resources in a Middlesbrough school, and after that trial of resources, a pilot was rolled out to Outwood Normanby, and several interventions implemented to increase the return of parental consent forms. So compared to a control school during the trial period, Outwood Normanby showed a 26% higher consent rate for the DTP and meningitis vaccines and a 27% higher consent rate for the HPV vaccination. And we're now working with the school-aged immunisation service to roll out the resources to all secondary schools in Redcar and Cleveland. And I cannot stress enough how important this work is to protect our children. Head Start. This is our service for children and young people that aims to build their emotional resilience and well-being by working with schools and pupils across the borough and at all ages. All the educational settings that Head Start supported gave positive reports about the content of the programme and its impact in the school. At the end of the 2023 academic year, over 1,000 pupils had accessed the educational pathway, with 90% of the pupils saying that they were dealing with problems well, and 95% saying that they were working with others well. Moving on, our sexual health service. There was an in-depth and very comprehensive review of the service by the public health team earlier in June 2023, and it made very uncomfortable reading. I won't list it, but suffice it to say, the service provider was not meeting many of their KPI, key performance indicator stats, and that in turn was impacting on the service that was provided to our residents. So actions were taken to improve contract and data management and also outreach services. Currently, the service is achieving its contracted activity levels and it's working at capacity. We still have high sexually transmitted infection rates, but there is a downward trend. We have much better data quality. We've developed outreach services. And that review also gave the opportunity to design a new service model better suited to the needs of our residents, and that's fully detailed in the report. And that new model is currently out to tender. In addition, Public Health has directly commissioned the charity Brook to provide sexual health information, advice and free condoms. This is a C-card scheme to young people, give education and training sessions to organisations at sites in Redcar and East Cleveland. And the Sexual Health Service Teesside, they're working with maternity services at James Cook to provide better delivery of contraceptive services. We have a very high rate of teenage pregnancy in the borough, but we now have a teenage pregnancy strategic partnership, professionals from a wide range of healthcare and other professionals, and the aim is to ensure a first-rate sexual health service for young people, reduce the number of teenage pregnancies, and support teenage parents. Moving on, the Thrive Partnership. The damage caused to individuals, families, and the wider community by substance misuse and domestic abuse is a major public health concern. Our response has been to bring together agencies that support and help those suffering from addictions and abuse into the Thrive Partnership. Thrive has a drug and alcohol substance misuse service, that's With You, a domestic abuse service, Harbour, and intuitive thinking skills who provide behaviour change and recovery-based programmes. So between October 23 and September 2024, 1,292 adults were referred into With You. In that same period, there were 360 successful completions and 366 who dropped out of that programme. For people who have successfully broken away from their addictions and free from their addictions, Intuitive Thinking Skills has a lived experience ambassador programme. Thrive has also piloted new roles. These are Thrive workers who are employed by With You, but hosted in adult and children's social care. So there is a specialist substance misuse social worker and a Thrive worker within children's social care, offering independent support to parents with substance misuse and or domestic abuse issues, attempting to de-escalate cases, moving towards child protection. The Changing Futures funding, which was a DLUC funding and the Big Lottery funding, allowed us to support people facing multiple vulnerabilities with 23 key workers and 5 enhanced key workers. The 5 enhanced key workers are the link to people in need, identified within A&E at James Cook, the Crisis Suite at Rosebery Park, the temporary accommodation within the Housing and Homelessness Prevention Team, the Custody Suite at Middlesbrough Police Station, and the Probation Service. Over the last 2 years, 991 referrals were made requesting support, 702 cases moved to no longer active, and 66% of service users agreed that all outcomes had been delivered. Changing Futures, I believe, has been very successful, but the current funding only runs until March 2025, and we do not know as yet whether it will be continued.
Councillor L, can you sum up, please? Is that well over time at all?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'd like to say that I think our welfare rights team have done incredible work with their pension credit campaign and their other campaigns to bring additional funding to residents who need the most support. That's detailed in the book. Please read it. They have done wonderful work. We're keeping people as warm and well as we possibly can. We have sports activities. We have pain relief type activities. We've used £170,000 of funding from the Lawn Tennis Association to refurbish our tennis park courts. We delivered the National Cycling Championships, a national road race, and a stage 2 of the Tour of Britain. And if you watched it on television, it was on UK TV and across the world. You saw the most fabulous images of what our beautiful, beautiful borough looks like. It'll bring visitors here, it'll bring people here who just want to experience what we have just on our doorstep. Finally, I'd like to thank all the officers across the council teams who've contributed to the achievements detailed in this report. Huge amount of work's gone in, and I recommend that the council notes the content of the report.
Thank you very much. I open up for question and answers. So I've got Councillor Nightingale, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you very much, Councillor Rowe, for the very detailed and comprehensive report on public health. I do note that there is no direct mention of the scrapping of the winter fuel payments to pensioners. Perhaps I should declare an interest, Mr. Mayor, on that. Although in section 9.4, it does allude to some of the efforts that have been made to deal with the credit arrangements. I just want to ask two questions, Mr. Mayor. One, has a detailed assessment been done of the consequences for public health from scrapping the winter fuel payments, and what preparations are being made to deal with this? And secondly, there are three questions. And secondly, wouldn't it have been better were the payments to be kept to avoid the prospect of people having to decide between heating and eating? And the third question, Mr. Mayor, has there been a response from the Chancellor to the letter that was sent by the Managing Director and the group leaders?
Councillor Earl.
Of the winter fuel payments, winter fuel payments were given to all pensioners regardless of their needs. That has been stopped, but pensioners who are on pension credit support actually still retain their benefit. We are using our household support fund. That's an additional payment from central government to councils to help those most in financial need. We are using that discretionary element of the household support fund to actually target residents who may have lost their winter fuel allowance but still will be entitled to other benefits that might help them. I'm just reading through now. Our welfare rights team so far has achieved about £3.2 million in additional income for residents, not just pensioners, but right across the board. Has there been a detailed assessment by Public Health of the outcome of winter fuel payments? No, there hasn't been. Payments, I can't read that just there. And I do not know whether we have had a response back as a council yet to the motion that was put forward.
Thank you. Councillor Davies, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Earl, as well for the report. East Cleveland Hospital. I can remember when it had the minor injuries unit, and it was quite a busy little place. Do you know if and when we'll be able to get more things happening, and even getting the minor injuries unit back? As someone who's recently had to go into hospital, I found it quite remarkable that the waiting times at A&E for things that could be seen by a minor injuries unit would sort of help drive down those waiting times for people that genuinely need to get seen at A&E. Now, I don't know whether this gets picked up or anything, but obviously James Cook, ideally you would think is for those around the Tees Valley, or mainly in the Tees Valley area. But there seems to be like an increasing number of ambulances coming from North Yorkshire with obviously patients into James Cook. Does that get taken into account when we start looking at waiting times and things like that as well? Maybe that's something you could find out for me, because I'm genuinely curious. Secondly, quangos. I think your particular cabinet report seems to have so many quangos that seem to all do the same sort of thing. You've got the Live Well South Tees Board. You've got the South Tees Health and Wellbeing Board. There's others. I definitely know there's others, but they're just the first two that I've sort of picked up on the first page or so. Would it be wise to maybe look at going down the Trump route and let's start getting rid of some of these that seem to be duplications of doing the same thing? It should be a one board for the South Tees. If we've got South Tees boards, we just have one South Tees board. Surely that would be a saving in terms of staffing, time, and more concentration on getting the results that obviously the borough needs. So for me, I think that would be the way to go. Thirdly, and it's probably not a surprise that I'm going to mention this, but it's come in one of your achievements as the community development health officers that we obviously now no longer have in our wards. Now that was one of the things that I was promised would not change over the course of this year since the changes came in. And I'd just like to point out that our CDO is no longer in post. Definitely doesn't work in our area, do the East Cleveland councillors I'm looking at. We've had no NAT meeting because no one organises it, and to be honest, they were well attended, and I'm very, very gutted that we're in this position now, that in a busy schedule for certain councillors, especially in our ward. I think we're all busy in Loftus. We've all got jobs, all doing council stuff, all doing other things as well. It was always successful in Loftus and in the Loftus ward, and I'm surmising it was the same in yours as well, in Broughton. It's a damn shame that it's got to the point now where they've stopped.
Councillor Davies, can we get the question, because obviously I'm conscious of the time. You're only supposed to get 10 minutes of questions, and we've had about 8 minutes.
Yeah, I've asked 2 questions already.
Get the point then, that's what I'm saying.
So the third question is, are we getting, you know, we were told CDOs weren't getting cut, but it's been proved now in the last 6 months that that was a cut. Is there any chance we can get them back? Because that was a promise that I got told last year.
Councillor Earl, please.
I'll go through your points and questions as you gave them. So East Cleveland Hospital, will we get our minor injuries back? That's not up to me. What I can tell you is that we have an excellent urgent treatment centre in Redcar. Absolutely excellent. And this is the way that South Tees Trust are actually developing their services to reduce burdens within A&E. So they have an urgent treatment centre at Northallerton, they have an urgent treatment centre at Middlesbrough, but we were one of the first, Redcar Urgent Treatment Centre. And also some other good news that Redcar Primary Care Hospital is going to have improved and increased diagnostic facilities. Now I thought they would be coming on stream earlier this year. It's been pushed back to later, but it will mean that people from East Cleveland won't have to travel to James Cook to get very complex scans. And there'll also be a dermatology service, as I understand it, and an enhanced endoscopy service at Redcar Treatment Centre. We can't have resources all over the place. We have to put the resources where most people can use them at easy access. I have used in minor injuries at East Cleveland Hospital in the past myself. Now I'd have to come to Redcar, and I will do that. The multiple agencies. Yes, I absolutely agree with you. There do appear to be multiple agencies. They actually do slightly different things. I agree with you. There is some overlap. You might be able to sort of merge some, but they do particular things. And public health is so wide that we do have to have multiple groups looking in detail at various particular issues. But I take your point. It does look like a lot. Right. Our healthy community coordinators team. So our healthy community coordinators team was formed by the merger of what used to be our community development officers and our health improvement team. And it was done for several different reasons. It was done because the two teams often worked on parallel tracks but could work better together. It was also done, yes, to save council money because we thought we could deliver it better. And from my point of view, it was really important that we actually took health into the community because the wider determinants of health are based within the community. Where you live affects your mental well-being, how tidy it is, how clean it is, what activities you can do within your community, you know, your green spaces within your community. What activities are going on that actually improve your health because they get you more active and they get you more involved with people. So I am very happy actually with the way that the Healthy Communities coordinator teams are working. And also, of course, you have the dashboard which actually shows you what your HCCs are doing. Now, I've attended one of your NAPs, and you're absolutely right, it was very well attended by residents who asked some very pertinent questions. It was a good NAP. Now, myself and Councillor John McHugh in Skelton West. We hold NAP meetings. We've continued to hold NAP meetings. We hold NAP meetings for the whole ward, not just, sorry, for the whole of Skelton, which is Skelton East, Skelton West, Boosbeck. But there is a process that you can follow to have these NAPs back in, but to have an experienced CDO actually sort of sitting there, almost being a secretary for your NAP meeting, that really is a waste of a valuable professional. So I can send you a pro forma showing you how to set up a NAP meeting in Loftus, what you need to do, who you need to speak to, and you'll be very pleased that there will be an HCC there, because we have 3 HCCs in East Cleveland, one of whom is a very well respected previous CDO. She.
No. You haven't been mentioned. She's just going through a question. Let her finish, please.
Can I continue?
Councillor Davies, please sit down. Please sit down. Please sit down. Thank you. Right, she hasn't finished yet. Will you please sit down?
And the HCC will be there to take action points from that minute and from that meeting and feed them back.
Right, thank you. I'm not taking any more speakers after Councillor Hunt. Because obviously we've gone well over the 10 minutes. So if you can keep your questions to the point, please. Councillor Ovens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try to be very brief, and I'd like to congratulate the Cabinet member on what has obviously been a very busy year, and this is a very comprehensive report. I could probably comment on everything, but I'll be standing as long as you, so I will not bother with that one. I would like to make 1 or 2 observations, and it's to say thank you for the tennis which came into my local area, also that you've noted the diagnostic centre at Redcar. I will just have some sympathy for East Cleveland. The Redcar Hospital does require a couple of buses or public transport to get there. However, it will still be a wonderful centre. I would like us all to get behind the healthy weight declaration which adult services are working towards, which you mentioned. And I would like to see the programmes that have been introduced into South Bank and Grangetown, etc., so successfully. It would be lovely to see if they could be expanded to other parts of the borough where there are equally communities in need, because the work there sounds fantastic. And finally, and this is on it's all just congratulations rather than a question, I'm afraid, but it was to refer to the tongue tie and the fact that you can actually have that operation done at Middlesbrough is fantastic, because I know the difference between 2 children, one who they refused to do anything for tongue tie, one they did, but it was a trip up to Sunderland. And it makes an immense difference to the feeding, and particularly breastfeeding, because with the tongue tie, it was the only child that I didn't successfully breastfeed. You have to get special dummies and teats and all sorts of things. So I think that's absolutely wonderful. And that leads into a good start with education and everything, because if it's a severe tongue tie, then it can actually affect speech as well. So I'm very, very pleased to see that. And it was really just a question of, it would be great, is there any opportunity to perhaps expand all that good work that's gone on in other parts of Redcar and Cleveland? Thank you, Councillor Earl.
Thank you. Councillor Earl, please.
Thank you, Councillor Evans, for your very kind words there, and thank you for the support as you as chair of the scrutiny committee. We do have community focus areas within the public health programme, and some of the work that you're referring to is done within that community focus, but I'll take that back to the public health teams and saying, how can we roll this out in other wards, because we tend to focus on wards with the highest levels of deprivation and health inequality, but I know that each ward has its own areas of health inequality.
Thank you. Councillor Leroy, please.
Yep, thank you very much. I'd like to welcome the fact that in this report, figures, well, not figures over domestic violence, but domestic violence is mentioned in passing. So there are lies, damn lies, and then the statistics of Cleveland Police. And when I did an analysis of the statistics of Cleveland Police recently, the police made me take them down, because rather than use a rolling average, which showed an increase year on year of domestic violence, they'd taken point estimates. I'll draw the attention of councillors to 9.3, which relates to lung conditions, which is something that I've obviously studied for many years, and I was part of the COPD Find the Missing Millions programme. Indeed, I trained the health professionals in this area to find those patients. So we have one of the highest rates of COPD, or lung disease, in the UK. And I'd just like to draw people's attention before I ask this question to the figures from the previous needs assessment from 2018, which shows that the people in this area are expected to live 3 to 4 years less on average and 8 to 9 years less than rural Northumberland, and this is an important point. Indeed, in this area, it looks good in the figures in terms of Alzheimer's and dementia are at lower rates, but you know why they're at lower rates? Because we die younger. Now, if we look at the causes of why we die younger, and we look at the under 75 years old, we see in the fourth column that there is a 6.8 figure for Redcar and Cleveland in terms of lung disease. Now, this is an outlier compared to England. It is significantly higher. And when we look at the smoking figures, which are also included under 9.3, although it says in deprived areas the smoking figures are higher, when we look at the overall figures for Redcar and Cleveland and we take out the anomalies and we start looking at individual wards and the percentage of smokers, or indeed these super output areas, and we compare them to lung disease, we see that this correlation starts to disappear and that there's a general problem in Redcar and Cleveland with regards to lung disease in populations that have never smoked. So my question would be, where is this pollution coming from? Because in your report, Dr. Earle, you mention with regards to disadvantaged areas being prone or being more exposed to occupational hazards and higher levels of air pollution. And as a caveat to that question, I'd just like to know where your support of an incinerator which puts out a toxic amount of particle 2.5, which you will know full well from your professional career resides in the lungs and then causes COPD, how your ideology on that particular incinerator, or indeed your loyalty to that project, matches up with what's in your report, because it appears to bifurcate.
Councillor Earle, please.
Leroy, you're very right to actually say we have a very high rate of ill health from lung disease. You're absolutely right to say that. You're absolutely right to then try and expand it onto why we have that high rate, and then you've expanded onto particulates of 2.5 microns. Okay, so smoking is one of the biggest causes of lung disease in this area. And it's also a health inequality issue, because the more deprived you are, the more likely you are to smoke. Okay? And smoking doesn't cause your lungs to sort of go bad overnight. It's a long, long process. So a person now in their 70s with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or something like that, you know, a long smoking history, or a history of living in a very industrial area, this is what's caused the problem now. In terms of PM 2.5s, as I think you will know, the highest rate of PM 2.5 discharge is from industrial processes. Yep, manufacturing, yes. Second one, I believe, is domestic, wood burning. Third, I think, is traffic, which comes in at about 18%, something like that. And then when we come down to incineration, it's less. In terms of
It's not a debate. You've asked a question. Just please accept the answer. Thank you.
I was actually looking at figures yesterday. In terms of municipal waste incineration and new incinerators, they have to be very, very strictly licensed by the Environment Agency. And the Environment Agency doesn't take its advice from me, it doesn't take its advice from you, it takes its advice from the UK HSA. And that is a group of professionals who regularly produce reports on environmental health, including air health.
Thank you. Councillor Fairley, please.
It's now been 2 weeks since Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, delivered her first budget in Parliament. Which announcements that were made will have an impact on your portfolio?
Councillor L, please.
Yeah, thank you. One of the announcements that the incoming Labour government trailed, and again was repeated in the budget, in that we want to move from a model of sickness to prevention. Now, I've outlined in my portfolio report many of the preventions that we're trying to take to prevent people getting ill, dying from diseases. That, I hope, is going to be matched by increased funding. I was very pleased to see in the budget that the Household Support Fund, which is a grant given to local councillors to help those most in need, is going to be rolled out now to 2025, 2026, because before the last two iterations of the Household Support Fund had literally had a cliff edge, you know, that they were going to stop at a particular point, and we had to plan for that. And all the services that supported people had to plan for that. And then we got last minute extensions of the Household Support Fund. But now we've got some certainty that that funding is going to be there to support people. I'm absolutely overwhelmed by free breakfast clubs for children. I know that's not coming in until next year, but if you've got a hungry belly, you can't learn. And children are turning up to school after a packet of crisps or a bit of toast or something, you know. So those breakfast clubs, I think, are going to be incredibly important. And also, we've been promised additional money for homelessness, but we haven't got the detail through yet. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hannaway, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for a very comprehensive, very detailed report. My question goes back to the area of Councillor Davies' first question about the number of bodies that are involved in delivering this huge range of work. And I take the point that you made about, you know, they do different things and work in different areas, even if there is some overlapping. But isn't the real problem that as the health landscape has grown more complex, and as all of these agencies and bodies and trusts and charities have taken over the work, more and more of it has become less under our democratic local control. And it's become more and more the province of the professional administrator rather than democratically accountable. And do you think it would be a good thing if there was some consolidation, at least at the level of governance, and that we got some of that control back?
Thank you. Councillor L, please.
I think that's a very difficult question to answer. I believe that you get the best results by working across disciplines and across various agencies. This is going to be our mission-based approach to the health and well-being strategy. I also think that, you know, you can get much more in the way of small incremental change rather than transformational change by having, you know, that working. Now, you're saying, I think, that because we have so many agencies, we're duplicating work. I can take that back to our Director of Public Health and ask him to have a look at it. You're also saying that, you know, we need to take back control in a democratic way, but in actual fact, we need to have really good governance structures, and I think good governance structures, and I think we have got good governance structures, give us that control. And you as a democratic representative can ask me, you can ask the Director of Public Health, you can put us on the spot, question us, etc. You can show us up if we get it wrong. I think that's good governance.
Thank you. Councillor Salvin, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for the report, Councillor Earl. I really appreciate it. Just on vaccines, just a point of note. You mentioned the HPV vaccine and obviously underage pregnancy. I'm not an expert here, but I'm led to believe that ideally girls need to have that vaccine before they lose virginity. Just a point to note though, we had some difficulty with my stepdaughter. She missed her HPV vaccine because she was ill at the time, and we tried and tried and tried. We couldn't get her into the doctors, and in the end we had to wait another year till it came back into the school, which I don't think was good enough. Now thankfully she does like girls rather than boys, so that wasn't a problem for us when it comes to underage pregnancy. But we have got one of the highest levels of underage pregnancy in this area, and I'm just wondering how we can make sure we capture those girls before it's too late. And also, just on vaccines as well, you mentioned about how we can try and get better vaccine rates in the area. I'm just wondering that from a council point of view, how can we get better at kind of approaching the subject in a campaign, and how can this council, working with the government, maybe introduce stronger laws on social media companies to stop the conspiracy theories, which is ultimately putting some parents off vaccines?
Thank you. Councillor Earl, please.
Very much for those questions. Firstly, you're absolutely right. The HPV vaccine is best given before sexual activity starts. You're absolutely right. It can be given later, but it's less effective. I'm very sorry that your stepdaughter missed that important vaccine when she should have had it, and that is something that I've heard, and it's a failing of the present service, and I'll take it back because we need to improve it. And yet children miss school, and there needs to be a proper catch-up service for those children. We don't want to make it any more difficult for these children to receive the vaccine that they need. In terms of teenage pregnancies, I've already talked about the strategic partnership for teenage pregnancies, and one thing I don't think I got to it, it's actually in the report here, is that we've directly commissioned Brooke, and Brooke is a charity, and they specifically work with young people to give them sex advice, and also provide them with free condoms and support. And you may have noticed that within the council we're publicising Brooke drop-ins for young people at our local libraries. So I think I've got three in Skelton, I think there's 3 in Loftus. They're all over the place. And again, it's basically putting it out there that there's nothing wrong with coming and asking about advice. And actually, if you're thinking about being sexually active, condoms are really good because they protect against sexually transmitted diseases as well as teenage pregnancies. So we have to see how well this Brooke thing works, but the C-card scheme I think is absolutely brilliant, giving free condoms.
Thank you. Councillor Corley, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Earl, for a very large portfolio report. Councillor Salvin kind of took one of my questions because I've experienced with my twins the exact same problem. Another one, recently I was at the Joint Health Tees Valley where we had a presentation on suicide, and to hear that Redcar and Cleveland is extremely high for suicide. However, with that we talk about mental health in there, but never with any of our press releases or our comms do we ever put 111 as a helpline. We always put the helpline for Samaritans and the 0800 numbers, which are longer to remember for somebody who may be in crisis. So can I just ask, can we please, when we're doing PR, put that 111 is now triaging those that have mental health and really suicidal thoughts? So that's one of my questions. The other one is recently within my ward, I've had to deal with homelessness and those that are rough sleeping. Can I just ask the Cabinet member how many rough sleepers we have in the borough at the moment? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Earl, please.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Corley. You're absolutely right. We have one of the highest rates of male suicide in the whole of the United Kingdom. We do have a Tees-wide suicide prevention team looking at this, trying to look at reasons why people might commit suicide. We do have that. You're absolutely right. We have the Samaritans number printed on council tickets, and I'll look to see if we can get that 111 number printed there as well. But to be honest with you, it might just be quicker to ring the Samaritans actually than go through 111. But I'll look at that. The number, excuse me, the number of rough sleepers. At the beginning of the week, we had 4 people known to us who were sleeping rough in the borough. One of those people is actually an active case with another local authority. So that person, if you like, is being tracked and looked after by another local authority. So that leaves us with 3 Redcar and Cleveland residents that we know about who are sleeping rough. And our homelessness prevention team have been engaging with those people, offering help. In some cases, it hasn't been accepted. I also want to point out that rough sleeping comes and goes. Somebody may be sleeping rough one night, but maybe surfing the next night. They're both of them, they're in need. Do you know what I mean? Both of those situations, they're in need. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just going back to Councillor Davis's point of the CDOs, and I cannot praise our ex-CDO, Jo Mead, enough. She was an excellent worker and we miss her. Before the budget last year, we were told that the CDOs were going into the paid by the National Health. They're now back on our payroll, aren't they? So could you please tell me why we're back on our payroll? Was it just a paper exercise to get through the budget? So all of a sudden we're back paying them. So could you please explain that to me? Thank you. And also, quick, before I finish, the mental health, the Broughton Ward Councils have been pushing for a long time now on the mental health at Broughton Hospital, trying to get a place. So could you just give me an update on that, please? Because the people of East Cleveland need something desperate up there, not to have to travel to Middlesbrough or anywhere else. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Earl, please.
I'll deal with the second point first, if that's all right. So you're absolutely right. I know you've pushed for mental health services to be brought to East Cleveland Hospital. I think it's a great idea. I can't give you an update on that. We don't actually provide those mental health services. It's another foundation trust. But again, within the budget, the Labour budget, there was a pledge for mental health crisis hubs. Again, devil's in the detail. We need to see what that is, but could we bid for something like that, for example, for an area like East Cleveland? In terms of the CDOs, I'm not quite sure that your interpretation is right. CDOs, as far as I know, have always been on the council payroll. Then I'll have to provide you with a written response to that, if that's acceptable.
Okay, thank you for that. Right, Councillor Kay, please.
Don't you think that there are in fact too many what Councillor Davis described as quangos, outside bodies, which really they never take decisions. I've been on the Health and Wellbeing Board for 4 years, I think it was. I've been on the South Tees Health Scrutiny Committee, I think that was about 4 years. And now I'm on the Tees Valley Joint Health Scrutiny Committee. Now these are all very interesting, but really they're just talking shops. And if you dissent too much, you, as Patrick will witness, you get mobbed. I've had that treatment myself. None of them are decision making. We need a scrutiny element. We need to recognise the partnership we have with Middlesbrough and indeed with the other Tees Valley authorities, but surely we don't need this overkill of quangos in order to progress our health service. There's too much overlapping, then they're virtually non-decision making, and dissent tends to get punished in one way or another. So please, is it possible to review this situation? Remember, we have our own scrutiny committee as well, which I'm vice chairman of. Is it not possible to review this situation and get rid of, we can't get rid of the Health and Wellbeing Board, can we not get rid of one of the others, either the Tees Valley or the South Tees, please?
Thank you. Councillor L, please.
Councillor Kay, and as a previous cabinet portfolio holder for this particular area, I have to ask, was there this strength of feeling when you were the cabinet portfolio holder, and how successful were you at reducing these talking shops? But I have to say, actually, you've all met.
Oh, can we just, can we have a bit of order, please? You've asked the questions, she's answering the question. Come on, you've got to accept them, come on.
Yeah.
Councillor
Yeah.
L.
We can review the processes. We can look at many of these things that you've said, but you know, we have to decide how to spend funding. Huge amounts of funding. Who's going to sign it off? Who's going to check that actually, you know, the funding that's provided is meeting the needs? You know, these really are not just talking shops. And I, you know, if you were mobbed, I'm sorry about that, but we have the opportunity at these boards to speak up, to put our points of view. You know, the Joint Strategic Needs Assessment, for example, was over 52 pages. I must have read it twice. You know, and from that, as I say, comes the Joint Strategic Needs Assessment, comes the Health and Wellbeing Strategy. That will be how we decide, how we actually allocate the funding that we have got. We still don't know actually how much funding we are going to get. We may have to cut some services, not cut some services. We can't just take decisions like that in isolation. You have to talk to partners about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for your report. Thank you for that. Right, move on to the report from the Governance Director and Monitoring Officer. I'll hand over to Steve Newton, please.
Mr. Mayor, this is a report really around Councillor Graham Jeffrey and his current health condition. Unfortunately, he's been diagnosed with a condition that affects his lungs and his immune system. So whilst he's able to carry out his ward work to some degree at the moment, he's been advised medically against attending large meetings or venues where there's air conditioning or circulated air. So similar to previous cases we've had with councillors with illnesses, the report's a recommendation to council to grant Councillor Jeffrey essentially a dispensation for 6 months from attending meetings to cater for his illness and hopefully allow it to be managed enough for him to return in due course. Of course, this would be a situation where remote meetings would be of benefit, but the law on that hasn't changed as yet, although there is a consultation out at the moment and we will be bringing a report through scrutiny on that. So, as I say, Chair, the recommendation is to allow the dispensation for 6 months, and I'd be grateful if there was support for the motion or the report, if there was a mover and a seconder.
Thank you. Do we have a mover, please? Yep, that's okay, yeah. Have we all agreed on that, yeah? Yeah, you want to need a show of hands, is okay. Okay, yeah. Thank you. Right, you've got a question. Question about what? Which report? Sorry, it's too late. It's already gone through now. Sorry, I didn't even see it on here. It didn't come up. It's come up now, but I didn't see it at the time. Right, moving on. Moving on to motions. A bit of order, please. Move on to motions. Motions, the speaker can speak up to 10 minutes, and all other speeches are 5 minutes. Obviously, I'm conscious of the time, so if we can keep it to the point, it would be much appreciated. So, motion 1, moved by Councillor Thompson and seconded by Councillor Smith. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your guidance on time.
Yeah, yeah.
Councillor Thompson, please. Thank you.
In 2022, an independent study of traffic and parking in Saltburn was conducted by WSP, now previously Capita, on behalf of Redcar and Cleveland Borough Council at the cost of £50,000. This was entitled the Saltburn Transportation Master Plan. The Council published the study and invited comment from Saltburn residents. This Council resolves that the proposals in the Capita report and the response from Saltburn residents now be given due attention, and a report detailing the relevant considerations along with the detailed proposals and recommendations for implementation be brought to Cabinet for discussion and decision making, and that this be done at the earliest date, but within 3 months. That is the wording, Mr. Mayor, of the motion, seconded by Councillor Smith.
Yep, thank you very much. Councillor Smith, yeah.
Motion and reserve the right to speak.
Thank you. Motion for debate. Councillor Brown, please.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I will comment on this, even though we are going to support the motion in the essence and the idea of it. As I did discussions with Councillor Thompson back at the time when we just took over the council, there was part of the master plan that he openly admitted to myself were undeliverable, were unfunded, and then the public reaction in Saltburn, as the two ward councillors were very aware of certain aspects of things that touched in the master plan, were highly unpopular, as the second motion pertains to, is one of the things regarding transport. The master plan didn't really, we talked about consultation when it was 2 to 1 against. Also the mass public meeting, I know that the prom adjustments weren't in that particular master plan, but they were still referred to and were mistakenly thought to be part of that master plan by the wider public. So in conversations with Councillor Thompson regarding that, I said we would come up with a much more targeted approach with the ward councillors in tow and with the residents, and I quite happily and unapologetically announced in that public meeting where there was 300 people against some of the things in there, that we would rip it up and go back to consulting with the public and the ward councillors. So Councillor Thompson, thank you for bringing this motion. I would say on the 3-month timeline, I'm very conscious we're coming into budget season, and Councillor Thompson, who's chaired the budget task and finished fantastically, will understand how resources are pretty tight at the moment in terms of coming and getting that budget written and coming in on budget. So I would ask him to be a little bit more flexible with that 3 months. However, there is a commitment for us to look at targeted areas within that master plan and bring it back to the table and the Cabinet. So we will be supporting the motion in its essence, but I do ask for that flexibility, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Councillor Hannaway, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the master plan itself was never unpopular. It was never actually published. It was, except by me, when I got fed up with waiting for it to be actually put in the public domain. but it was the unfortunate coming together of two projects. One was the changes to Marine Parade, and that work was, I think, maybe it was 6 years delayed or something. And when it was started, it had to be started at the same time that the master plan was being consulted on. So I think it was that timing that really kicked off the first very negative response. But I think this isn't the only document in recent times that has had to be wrested from the straining fingers of officers. And I think that's an important consideration. I think I've heard more nonsense spoken about this master plan from officers than anything else, any other document. You yourself, Councillor Brown, told me that you'd been informed that most of the plan was actually written by Councillor Philip Thompson, as if Capita had come to Saltburn with their people and gone, you know, come on, Philip, just tell us what to write and we'll put it in the plan. Other nonsense statements were, for example, the summer of 2022, when an officer said, oh, you'll have the plan, we've got it, we're discussing it, you'll have it by the end of the month. And that should have been the end of August, and we didn't have it by the end of September or October or November, and we actually got it in the end a few days before Christmas. And then after Christmas, I asked an officer, when are you going to publish it? And the officer said, actually, we see it more as an internal ideas document now. You know, £50,000 for an internal ideas document. And so I think the best reason for supporting the motion is just to get it out into the democratic domain, rather than officers deciding even whether, you know, a report that's actually addressed to the public and thanks the public for their participation and tells, you know, it's clearly addressed to the public, but it hasn't actually ever officially reached them. So let's get it into the process, and we can have some democratic decisions about it instead of backroom ones. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, please.
Leader's decision that we'll be supporting this motion. The Saltburn Master Plan was commissioned by the Highway Department back in the late 2022 to understand the existing transport problems in which Saltburn was and is still having through public consultation. It was undertaken to gauge and outline the local public concerns. Capita was commissioned to undertake this work at the cost to the council taxpayer of £50,000. Yes, you heard right, £50,000. The plan asks questions on parking, road safety, public transport, park and ride, cycling, and other important issues that Saltburn faces as the major visitor destination within this borough. Over 1,200 responded, with 900 of these from Saltburn residents. The request was sent out to 3,370 properties and a total population of 4,849 electors were asked to respond. The findings and report by Capita were eventually released in the summer of 2023 and was welcomed by elected members and residents of Saltburn. At last, we had a document, a master plan, that we could work from and refer to, that would sit in the background when working towards achieving our goals and aspirations to improve the road infrastructure and traffic management of Saltburn, and hopefully improve the day-to-day living of Saltburn residents and the visitor destination experience of those visiting the town. We realised as ward councillors that this would not be achieved overnight. It would be not until the financial circumstances are improved within the authority or the successful awarding of financial assistance from other outside organisations to achieve some of our goals and aspirations to improve the road infrastructure and traffic management of the town. So you can imagine our dismay and major disappointment, and without prior consultation, that it was announced that the master plan would be totally scrapped. Councillors, the Saltburn Master Plan is an important and essential document for the future infrastructure plans for Saltburn. To just ignore and disregard this in this way I would ask you support Councillor Thompson's motion. I second and support this.
Thanks for that. Right, Councillor Thompson, do you want to sum up, please? Councillor Smith, yeah, it's all right, no problem.
Thank you for allowing me to sum up, Mr. Mayor. I might remind you, you didn't actually ask me to introduce the motion. So, in summing up, and with the risk of introducing new information, just to say...
I missed what you said, Councillor Thompson, at all, because it's quite distance from us.
So, this report was published in November 2022. Here we are, November 2024. Consultation was taken with members of the public in May 2023, 18 months ago. And in the letter was sent to all residents, the advice was that we will be coming back to you very soon to consult with you again about our specific proposals. No such consultation has ever been undertaken. So here we are, £50,000 has already been alluded to as the cost of the capita fee. What we have not been advised of is the cost of all of the work of officers' time, of administration, and the consultation that has been undertaken, the letters that have gone out on 2 separate occasions, which must run into tens of thousands of pounds. So this piece of work is long overdue. And I'm very grateful to the leader for agreeing to accept the motion as worded, although with the caveat about delivery time. I think, Mr. Mayor, we need to put to bed some of the misinformation that is promulgated in some of the debates that are surrounding the subject of the master plan. Reference has already been made this afternoon to a meeting at which 300 residents were present. That, again, is well documented in the minutes of this council where it's been stated previously. It might be of interest to members that the venue in which that meeting was held has a fire maximum of 120 persons. It has also been affirmed by the manager of the venue that that number was not exceeded. So for the record, we need to have accuracy.
No, let him, come on.
So, so that is a matter
everyone's
of
in
record.
support of this motion. So
It is very important because what we're talking about here is information, and that is a matter of record. So thanks to those members who've spoken in support, and I would ask all members present to support the motion.
Thank you very much. All those in favour of the motion, please show. That's agreed. Thank you very much. Move on to motion number 2. Councillor Thompson and seconded by Councillor Hannaway. Councillor Thompson, please, to move the motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I know you are guiding me on time, but I think this is such an important matter that I am going to read the motion. So in response to a full council motion in 2022, the council has issued the following: New Mask and Saltburn Waiting, Loading and Parking Places Consolidation Order 2003 Amendment, Order Number 1, 2024. The order would prevent the parking of motor caravans in sections of Glenside and along Marine Parade between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. daily. And this was referred to in the appendices of the order. A motor caravan would be defined as a means of a motor vehicle which is constructed or adapted for the carriage of passengers and their effects, and which contains as permanently installed equipment the facilities which are reasonably necessary for enabling the vehicle to provide mobile living accommodation for its users. Motorhome definition from Motor Vehicles Type Approval, Great Britain Regulations 1984. In accordance with standard practice, residents were invited to register objections, and a decision based on responses was made under delegated powers, based on the response of a, quote, significant majority of Saltburn residents objecting, and a petition received. A press release advising of the council's decision not to implement the proposed order, advising the decision was based on resident response and the submission of a petition. Given that the advertising of the order only invited objections and the petition did not qualify as a relevant document in accordance with the council constitution, it is requested that given the protocol for advertising and requesting the response to TRO responses and guidance for evaluating responses is not at all clear, it is requested that the council agrees to review the protocol for TRO promotion and response evaluation, and to do so within 6 months. Now, the rationale for proposing that, Mr. Mayor, is quite simple. We invite under TROs objections. However, in the incident I'm referring to, not only were objections received, but indications of support were channeled into the authority. We are guided to understand that under the TRO regulations, the objections which are solicited are the determinants of how decisions are to be made. Now, because powers are delegated, and they're delegated only to one officer within the authority, the decision-making process, therefore, has no democratic input into it whatsoever, as far as the law guides. However, in the instance in which we're referring to, because there were indications of support which were unsolicited, these apparently were taken into account in the decision-making process. And whilst we were guided in this chamber that a petition which had been submitted was not relevant and had no bearing at all in the decision, when the press release was issued on behalf of this council, it clearly indicated that the decision taken also took into account the fact that a petition had been received. That is documented. So the concern of residents in Saltburn is that the process that they are guided to adhere to appears to be flawed. And therefore, where a system is questioned, it seemed very pertinent to review that system to give it more robustness, more probity, so that any decision that is taken can be given and received with confidence. So, at the moment, it is not clear who is to be consulted. A TRO simply indicates that consultation will be invited, and that is normally done through a press release. It is normally done by some notifications being placed on some lamp posts. There is no clear guideline on the methods to be used in evaluating responses. There is no clear information on how information is to be gathered. And the rationale for decision making is, in my view at least, clearly flawed. How is it to be reported? We need to be looking at how the process should be clearly documented and a channel of reporting clearly identified to all parties taking consultation and decision. Now, the paradox also is that if a TRO were to be supported, a report would go to Cabinet from the officer making the recommendation as to why a decision has been taken to recommend support. But if a decision is made not to recommend support, no report is required. So Cabinet never knows why a decision was taken to turn down a TRO that the authority had requested to be supported. A clear flaw in the system. And what we therefore, Mr. Mayor, come down to at the end of the day is that this is a value judgment being made. There are no benchmarks. There is no case law. So any member of the public, not surprisingly, has great difficulty in understanding how this decision-making process, if that is what we can call it, actually happens. So what I am requesting in this motion is that we do a review of our process. I did mention previously that reference had been made in the press release by the council to a petition to support the decision. I asked questions previously in council about this particular petition, whereby it did not accord with the constitutional guidelines that are clearly set out in the Constitution for the evaluating of the merit of any petition that is submitted. Petitions that are submitted have to have addresses relevant to those who sign. That particular petition only had 20 relevant postcodes. So out of all the people who allegedly were signatories, it was not a valid document. I also made reference to the fact that more persons from overseas were actually on the signatory list than those resident in the ward. So, Mr. Mayor, there are many, many reasons why it is important that this authority does step back, review its procedure so that the public and members can have more confidence in our decision-making process. And on that basis, I ask the Council to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Is it Councillor Hanaway to second it, please?
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Open up for debate. Councillor Brown, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. For the third and final time, Councillor Thompson, as someone who was privy to the discussions and then the director to make that final decision, 100% the petition was corrupted from people out of the area and was no part of the decision making. Now, if someone's been overzealous in a press release, I apologise for that. But again, for the third and final time, I am saying this, it played no part in that. And now to say a press release is proof that it did, well, surely 2-1 against having overnight overbans should be proof to you also that that's not what the public wanted. Even today, I've been reading a social media thread by one of the residents who I know well, who messages me daily with pictures of the motorhomes, and I have a lot of sympathy for him. This is why I've discussed with the cabinet member about some kind of compromise about how long they could actually stay there, because it is unfair. I'm seeing pictures that a camper van was there for several weeks, which is unfair. However, we don't want to put off visitors and tourists to the area as well. So we can't say that a press release is proof that a petition was used in the decision that it wasn't, but yet people, 100% more people said they were against it. However, I do hold some sympathy and agree with you in terms of the robustness and how we come to these decisions and the process. I'm all for decisions that we all make to be as robust as we possibly can. So on that merit, I will absolutely support your motion for us to really look at the process. I do hold a lot of sympathy for that. However, I will make a plea for you to stop spreading. Again, we talked about misinformation earlier, about the size of a room and how many people are in there. To be spreading that the petition played any part of the decision making is spreading misinformation. So I would ask you to practice what you preach, Councillor Thompson. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Quartermain, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I support this motion also, because it is right that our public consultation processes are transparent, fair, and genuinely reflect public sentiment, and that the council follows established procedures inviting residents to register objections. While there may be concerns about how objections are advertised or evaluated, any review should focus on improving transparency and public engagement for the future, not second-guessing past decisions made in good faith based on evidence and input. Public consultations often involve opposing views, and in this case, the decision reflected the majority perspective, highlighting the complexity of finding consensus. Refining protocols moving forward is, in my view, a positive step, but should not lead to revisiting settled matters or creating uncertainty around past decisions shaped by community input. We must be cautious of revisiting previous decisions, as they are not financially prudent, nor does it help our council with its strategic focus elsewhere across this borough. Our council resources, both financial and human, are limited. I'm all for building better processes for the future, and I am all for respecting previous outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Leroy, please.
Careful on how we address each other. I just felt the remarks made towards Councillor Thompson went a little bit over the line. Councillor Thompson, although we've disagreed on issues in the past, always behaves with an impeccable manner in the council chamber. So I just felt it was a little bit sharp with him. So.
Okay. Councillor There's no one else to speak, so Councillor Thompson, do you want to sum up, please? You didn't put your hand up. You said you reserved the right. You press it now. You want to speak now then?
Have you forgotten?
Well, you said to me you're not on. You are now, but you just pressed it. Reserve the right to speak, but you didn't come back at all.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for supporting the motion. Just for your information, if it was a misuse of a press release, it was used in the Northern Echo and on Facebook, in a council Facebook post. So I just, give you that info, something for you to look into. Obviously, I'd like to just remind the council that the Local Government Association view of this was that far too much weight had been given to the views of people who would never ever be affected by the decision. And obviously that was certainly the case with the petition. I suppose it's a more debatable point whether you can take objections and then you happen to get people who don't quite get the point of the consultation and happen to write in support, and then you turn that into a poll. I mean, you could argue that the council is entitled to do that, but it does seem a different use of the information. So I think it would be good to get the rules about TROs clear. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Right. Okay. Thanks, Councillor Brown. Right, Councillor Annaway, when you said you have the right to reserve to speak, yeah, not a problem, but you still got to indicate on the button you're going to speak. You didn't, so I'll let you come in that time, but you still got to indicate. You only press the button after I spoke to you. So we'll go back to Councillor. I'm just saying, because you weren't on to speak at all. We hadn't pressed it at all, it wasn't on. You only pressed it at the end. That's what you said it. Councillor Thompson, to sum up, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the risk of reiterating a point of controversy, the fact that a press release was issued on behalf of this authority, which was clearly refuted in this chamber and has been again today, is a cause for concern. So one lesson we need to be learning is if we are issuing press releases, they need to be correct. Now, we've heard this afternoon that part of the rationale for the decision in this instance that we've been referring to was a numeric one. And yet, because the process only requests objections, if support does come, then the system starts to say we're into a numerical evaluation. So the benchmarks that are being used are not clear. So if 10 persons, Mr. Mayor, were to agree and there were no objections, then a decision would be taken on what basis? Is 10 enough or not? And if 5 people who unsolicitedly supported, is 10 to 5 acceptable or not? If 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 have objected, would one simple vote, first past the post, be accepted? So there are no benchmarks, there's no case law. Under normal circumstances, if 10 people objected, the reasons for objection would be taken into account. So if the objection reasons were not deemed to be pertinent, in other words, not material, would they be recognised? So the point, Mr. Mayor, that I think needs to be made is that the system that we do have, that we have inherited, is flawed. And my request this afternoon is to review that protocol to improve upon it. So I'm very grateful for the support given both by the leader and the cabinet member, and I would ask all other members of the chamber here today to also show the support for the motion.
Thank you. All those in favour of motion 2, please show. That's agreed. Thank you very much. Right, moving on to number 11, to appoint members. Councillor Richardson to replace Councillor Fairley on the Employment, Health and Safety Committee. Is that okay? Yep, all agreed? Thank you. Right, go on to questions. We've received 10 questions, but we only require an answer of 7 of them. With reference to the questions that were produced in the minute book, Councillor Leroy has withdrawn his question to Councillor Earl and has agreed to accept written responses to his questions to Councillor Nightingale and Smith. So we move on to question 1. That's Councillor Leroy to Councillor Morgan, Chair of Governance Committee. Just bearing in mind that you get 2 minutes to ask the question, yeah? Thank you.
Thank you. An FOI from the 25th of July to 2024 served on the Council's monitoring officer reveals an interesting thread. It reveals a councillor from the political group that you lead quizzing the monitoring officer if there was enough evidence to take another councillor to a code of conduct hearing. The monitoring officer, on this occasion a little bit too rash, engaged in the conversation. Worryingly, when you were then sent the email by the councillor as though you were part of the plotting. A previous FOI showed you having an email engagement with the managing director regarding a desire to remove a councillor from a chairmanship. That was released in December, January. These revelatory FOIs question your standing and ability to act as chair of the governance committee and the fiduciary responsibility it holds. Considering the evidence, your willingness to be involved in potential skullduggery and vendetta, why should any councillor in this chamber, and this is the question, why should any councillor in this chamber trust that the code of conduct is being administered with any reasonableness and neutrality? Thank you.
Councillor Morgan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With regard to the first freedom of information you refer to, the group member simply forwarded the conversation to me and the Lib Dem group as a whole for information only. That was that. No plotting on my part whatsoever. With regard to the second freedom of information you refer to, yes, there was a request for me to have a brief catch-up with the managing director to hear first-hand, instead of rumours, of any concerns relating to the councillor's position as chair, before then arranging a meeting with the councillor themselves. At the meeting with the councillor, which was also attended by Councillor Nightingale, I said quite openly that officers did not have an issue with the councillor being chair, nor separately did they have an issue with their campaigning, but that it was the combination of the two that was concerning. At this same meeting, the councillor agreed to switch from one committee to another, thereby giving them greater freedom to campaign. But then, after later withdrawing from this agreement, the councillor then said at a later Lib Dem group meeting that they would step down from the chairmanship in a couple of months. There's been no skullduggery no vendetta, conspiracy. No one has put pressure on me or asked me to remove the councillor as chair. As to the code of conduct, being administered with reasonableness and neutrality, there is a full audit trail. An independent person is involved from the very beginning, and should that person agree to it being taken further to an assessment subcommittee, that is chaired by an independent member alongside 2 other members of the governance committee, who then come to a majority decision. Again, the views of the independent person are also taken into account. And a principal legal officer is in attendance for guidance and advice. Code of conduct cases are then reported to the next governance committee meeting. So therefore, I do believe that this to be a reasonable and neutral process.
Thank you. Councillor Leroy, do you have a supplementary question, please?
I became aware of a case where a bitter political rival of a councillor chaired their code of conduct case. What are the checks and balances to prevent that from happening going forward?
Thank you. Councillor Morgan, please.
Could I ask you to repeat the question, please?
I'm aware of a case where a bitter political rival of a councillor chaired their code of conduct hearing. What are the checks and balances in place to prevent this from happening in future?
Sorry, I don't really have enough information to answer that this time.
Right, thank you very much. We'll move on to question 2. Councillor Hart to Councillor Quartermain, Cabinet Member for Highways.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, you've made my day today. So I would just like to ask part of the question, if that's okay. And the part of the question I'd like to ask is, going back to the free 1-hour parking, where we've had to go through all the regulations to get that going. Did we get a date for that?
Thank you. Councillor Quartermain, please.
And thank you for your question. I don't think we've got a specific date. I mean, I think it was something like the 22nd or something like that. But if it was going to be so late, we would have put a temporary order in there anyway. I think what this free parking will do now, from the 1st to the 31st, we'll see in a bit further down the road, when January starts, that 1-hour free parking will be in play.
Yeah, have you got a second question?
Could I just add a little bit back onto that? Because obviously the free 1-hour parking would be all day. So if somebody was shopping at 9 o'clock in the morning, they would get that 1 hour free. I think at the last chambers that I asked that question, you said come the 1st of December, we would be assured of that anyway. So could I just ask for confirmation that that would start from a morning? And could, instead of a supplementary question, if I could just say to you, I know this has been a difficult decision, the way that we're looking at balancing the budgets. And I am so grateful on behalf of all the businesses, both in Gisborne and Redcar, for how hard you've worked. We don't take this for granted, but we do need it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillor Quartermain.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I'll have a look into it. I mean, my intention was always, if we couldn't get it in time for the run up to Christmas, then we would make a decision. We would do something to make that happen anyway. But yeah, I'll come back to you on the specifics of that. I don't have a date in my head. Okay. Of course. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 3, Councillor Grogan to Councillor Brooke. Cabinet Member for Neighbourhoods, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First and foremost, I would like to show appreciation to the hard work last week given to our emergency services, Cleveland Fire Brigade and Cleveland Police, with all the antisocial behaviour that was going out, not just in our ward, but in other parts of the borough as well. But obviously it leads on to this question. We've seen an increase of antisocial behaviour within Kirkleatham, especially on the Green Gates field and the play park. The children's playground has been burned down, but not once, but twice, and since this has actually been written 3 times, which has caused upset amongst the community and extra cost to the taxpayer. One day later, after the second time, I witnessed 3 motorcycles, a gang of youths in the centre of the field with a petrol can, and that was after the last attempt. Police were called but failed to turn up. I've since spoken with one of the inspectors in Kirkleatham Police Station and the PCSO on Wednesday, and after even more arson was committed in the area, and they have the operational powers to actually try and implement a little bit extra resources into the area. We have 1 CCTV camera on the lamppost, and I've been informed is not monitored, and on the CCTV control system only accessed by a select few. I'm concerned that people's safety is not being prioritised by the council with the hopeful investment brought in with regards to the football pitch, other than these followed on from the hard work that Councillor Brown has brought in towards the football pitch and things like that. The last thing our community needs is for them to potentially lose a bit of faith and pull out due to safety concerns. Can you please tell me what plans you have got going forward to increase the deterrent to these vandals and that plague our fields and our children's playgrounds? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brooke, please.
Yeah, thank you for your question, Councillor Grogan. I'd just like to echo your thanks to our emergency services. I witnessed firsthand the amazing work that they've been doing whilst I was on site one evening with Councillor Furley and seeing exactly the issues that were faced. And I agree, obviously we've seen an increase of antisocial behaviour fires during October and early November. I would like to assure you that community safety is both mine and this council's top priority. During this period, the council work alongside Cleveland Fire Brigade, Cleveland Police and Beyond Housing on Operation Autumnus, an annual operation specifically designed to reduce the opportunity of fires and antisocial behaviour on and around Mischief and Bonfire Night across the borough. As well as these proactive operations, as a result of mine and the leader's request, the Police and Crime Commissioners funded antisocial behaviour patrols have also been temporarily reinstated at Kirkleatham. The council are continuing to support Cleveland Police, specifically Operation Endurance, in response to off-road bikes. We do currently have 1 long-standing rapid deployment camera at Green Gates Field, and whilst the camera is not currently continually monitored, footage is regularly reviewed in order to try and identify perpetrators. However, today, I can confirm, following my request, this will now be replaced with a permanent camera as part of the current CCTV refurbishment and will be directly linked to our CCTV control room. It should be noted that the council, as well as partners in the fire brigade and police, are also reliant on residents reporting incidents to ensure appropriate resource allocation, as well as intelligence with regards to where off-road vehicles are being stored, along with the identification of the perpetrators. As you are aware, the neighbourhood team are also working with colleagues in our climate team to look at potential projects that will look to bring back the field into greater community use and reduce the opportunities for antisocial behaviour. And as you know, we've got a site visit in the morning with all involved and we'll have further discussions.
Thank you. Have you got a supplementary question?
Yes, I do. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Adam, thank you. Getting a proper camera put there is one of the main things that residents have asked for in the immediate area, just to show deterrent. So these idiots, that's the best way to put it, can be seen and detained and dealt with correctly. I would like, obviously, when I was speaking to the inspector, obviously funding. They need more funds to get more people on the beat. Now, I do know one of our former colleagues, one of your colleagues, Luke Meyer MP, has been lobbying the police minister. It would be good if we could show, obviously, you leader and you obviously in charge of that, getting behind them as much as possible, putting the full force of the council to try and get some more money in from central government. And it would be appreciated if there's anything that you guys could do to actually assist our PCC in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brooke, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Grogan. This administration is in full support. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to question number 4, Councillor Martin to Councillor Brook, please.
Afternoon. In May, I asked you a question regarding increasing enforcement numbers so our streets could be safer. Your answer was that the incoming fines are only 30% of the total cost of engagement officers, and that we don't want to become known as a fining culture, and basically we didn't have the budget for it. And you want to go down more of the education route. However, in the Managing Director's August statement, it states that the Council will be increasing enforcement in order to increase income. So my question to you is, what is it? Are we going down the education route? If so, what is it? 6 months on, we've heard nothing. Or are we going down the Managing Director's statement on recruiting more officers? Either way, can the Council please confirm what the enforcement officers are doing?
Thank you. Councillor Brook, please.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Mark, for your question. To confirm, the Managing Director's statement said we would look to increase our income from enforcement and fines, not that we would increase enforcement officers. Any enforcement undertaken by the Council must be proportionate and responsible, in line with good practice and legislative requirements. Public awareness and education is extremely important to ensure residents are aware of the responsibilities under the law, and therefore helps to minimise the potential of them becoming subject to enforcement action. This is generally done in real time on site. We have a very experienced enforcement team who know where the hotspots are on any given day and will deploy resources appropriately. It is about being more proactive in terms of targeting these hotspots where we know there are particular problems. So it's a case of refocusing existing resource and trying to make it more impactful, rather than increasing our officer numbers. Education still plays a part in the role, so any enforcement will still be proportionate. Regards to the increase of income, this is something we're looking at across the council as part of our financial position, and doesn't relate to your previous question in May.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Mark?
And Councillor Taylor, we went around with the enforcement officers on one occasion approximately a month ago. We managed to issue 4 tickets in only...
Sorry, 2 seconds. Can we have a bit of shut at the back, please? If you want to talk, and you go outside the chamber. Thank you.
The enforcement team issued 4 tickets in 4 hours. But it could have been 16 hours. The biggest problem was the 5-minute waiting time that the enforcement officers have to have. But if we had the blips on the curb next to the double yellow lines, it's a 0 waiting time, so you can go there, park there, and then get a ticket. Can we introduce more of these blips onto the curbs where the double yellow lines are? That way, enforcement officers aren't hanging around for 5 minutes waiting for somebody who may or may not come back to get a ticket.
Thank you. Councillor Brook, please.
Yeah, I agree, and that's definitely something I'll pick up with Councillor Quarterman Highways.
Brilliant, thanks for that. Move on to question number 5, Councillor Leroy to Councillor Brown, Leader of the Council.
After all the discussion about the cost of housing appeals at the previous council meetings, I was surprised to see an expensive barrister representing the council at the Silverdale Gardens planning appeal. An appeal this chamber agreed not to defend, with notable upholders of democracy opposing such folly. The barrister's presumably handsomely rewarded contracted employment for the day appeared to consist of needlessly reading out a pre-prepared council statement. A statement to tell the planning inspector of how wrong I was on a technical point of unconnected case law with no particular relevance to that day's subject matter. And it's a simple question. It's not a debate between us. Just, did you know about this? Were you aware of this frivolous use of funds?
Councillor Brown.
I'll try not to be sharp, Councillor Leroy. No, I wasn't. For context, this decision had been taken not to instruct council to attend the hearing because, as the question points out, the appeal was not being defended. However, in the lead to the inquiry, an allegation was raised that the council's decision not to defend the appeal was unlawful. And just for context, the leader was not consulted, as it was a routine decision relating to legal proceedings.
Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Leroy?
No,
You're thinking about one, aren't you?
I don't know.
No,
Not
okay.
to that, no.
No, all right, thank you. Right, moving on then. because you won't come back because no questions. I don't want anyone saying a point of order later on. Moving on to number 6, Councillor Leroy to Councillor Brown. Again, Leader of the Council.
So in 2018, an incinerator was opened to the northwest of Wilton, Wilton 11. It burns 400,000 tonnes of rubbish from Merseyside. The history of this incinerator is somewhat interesting. Merseyside, or specifically Halton Council, didn't want to host it. Maybe they considered something Redcar didn't. Particle 2.5, as I mentioned earlier, is a microparticle in respirable range that causes cancer, cardiovascular disease, and chronic respiratory disease. The specification of the limits of Wilton 11 are PM 2.5, 30 milligrams per metre cubed. So this is 10 milligrams per metre cubed over WHO's safe air quality standards. The incinerator was greenwashed, as is commonly the case in that particular industry, as an energy recovery facility. Similarly, the proposed TVERF incinerator project at Teesworks, a proposed site which is within walking distance of Wilton 11, is also proposed at PM 2.5, 30 milligrams per metre cubed. According to the report produced in the Planning Committee the 20th of July 2023, the volume of 2.5 from the 2 incinerators combined, so this is what I'm an expert in, this is what I do for a living, I'm an aerosol scientist, I'm not a planning expert, unfortunately. PM 2.5 from the 2 incinerators combined with average wind speeds and directions from the coordinate point, which is right in the middle of the 2 incinerators, looking at the topography and turbulent flow patterns, with wind projection dependent on the damaging levels of 2.5. So if we've got a wind speed between 10 and 15 miles per hour, the range reaches Redcar, all of, Mask, unfortunately, the gap between, Gisborough and most of Middlesbrough. In the notes of the paperwork with regards to this incinerator provided to me by the responsible officer, there is no study on the cumulative effects of the close-by incinerator, so the 2 together. Indeed, I'm the only PhD aerosol scientist who reviewed the files, which is somewhat disappointing. Is the council leader aware of the proximity of the 2 incinerators? Is he concerned by the effects that such concentrations of particle 2.5 will have on quality of life, life expectancy, mortality rates, and economic health burdens within this 6-mile radius, but particularly within those communities nearby, which are some of the most deprived in the country?
Councillor Brown, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just for the previous question, I forgot to mention, if members weren't aware, the independent inquiry resolved the monitoring officer of any wrongdoing whatsoever, and due process was followed through the entire Silverdale Gardens process. Just on the incinerators, I'm not an expert or any of this, Tristan. I am when it comes to electioneering, though, and getting yourself in the paper. As leader, I'm always conscious of the health of the borough as a whole, which is why the issues like this rely on experts with the Environment Agents, including their assessment of stack emissions and the cumulative impacts of emissions from nearby facilities. The implication in the question that the emission levels in the area could be dangerous or harmful would need to be substantiated and provided to the EA. I am not sure if you contributed your concerns to the EA, Councillor Leroy, at all, when the open public consultations took place. Oh, well, okay. Well, he'll come back and supplement it, won't he? The environmental permit application, but the assessments concluded there would be no significant impacts on air quality or health, and the permit has been granted by the EA. But what I will go further, I know Councillor Earl sort of corrected some of your claims a little bit earlier in terms of these admissions, but we are, of course, we're concerned. Our children live in this borough. We're always looking for the best outcome for our families that are going to be here when we're not here. I know you brought a number of alternatives, and I know Councillor Richardson has listened to a lot of them, but a lot of them are not working. Like, for instance, the one that cost the gasification, which cost one council 90 million, and having to pay compensation, and now a further 52 million to try and repair it. I do know that you've set up an alternative meeting regarding the one being built in Spain, I believe, which we don't know whether it's going to work or not yet, because there's no other precedent of a working example. So again, we are listening, Councillor Leroy, and of course I am concerned when I hear things about emissions, because I am a layman and I don't know the ins and outs. However, I am hearing a lot of refuting information from than what you regularly claim in this chamber.
Thank you. Do you want to come back on that one, Councillor Leroy?
So gasification is operating in over 100 sites in the UK. It's simply not true that it's not working. Milton Keynes being one of those, a Labour council. Indeed, there's an actual site in Middlesbrough for gasification from residual waste, which is producing carbon fuels right now. The contract is over 30 years at 30 micrograms per metre cubed, as I said already, but the WHO limits are below those. Indeed, this is the Labour government's targets, 10 micrograms per metre cubed, pollution exposure to be reduced by 35% compared to 2018, while we're increasing them. Chronic respiratory disease in this area is the 4th biggest killer of people of our age, Councillor Brown, our age group. It is an outlier compared to the rest of the country. Keir Starmer announced an 81% reduction in emissions inside 10 years, yet the council is trebling its carbon output before 2030 when it had a zero target. Indeed, when we look at the finances behind this plan, they don't take into consideration the 2028 carbon trading scheme, which will result in an annual 68 million carbon bill. And I would just like to point out as well, because the point was made there that Councillor Earl had corrected me. Indeed, she hadn't, because I didn't get a chance to come back. She referenced that the UK HSA set acceptable limits for incinerators. They do not. It is DEFRA, and the limit that was quoted is incorrect. I have just corrected it. Thank you. So the question is, please can we look at the finances of this and realise that it will bankrupt the council and pull out of this ridiculous 30-year contract.
Councillor Brown, please.
So we were pulling out, so we were looking at the finances when we create the business plan next year.
Thank you. Right, moving on to question 7, Councillor Brown to Councillor Massey, Cabinet Member for Resources, please.
Can't remember my own question. Oh, there it is. That's not my question. Councillor Massey, with the recent announcement of the additional government funding, could you share now that how this will assist in addressing some of the very pressures, particularly in social care and achieving a balanced budget? How will this support the council's efforts to maintain essential services and deliver stability for residents across Redcar and Cleveland? And does the Cabinet Member welcome the budget for the council?
Councillor Massey, please. Can we just have a bit of quiet, please, while we answer the question? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Brown. The recent government announcement and the government budget provides some relief for the council, but I do want to speak to all sides and all members of the chamber in the response to this. So the positive things that came out of the budget, which I do welcome, was that there will be a £1.3 billion increase in local government funding for the next financial year, 25-26. We need to do the sums on this. We need the government to do theirs to find out what our share of that is, but we would hope that it's in the region of £2 to £3 million. Obviously, that £2 to £3 million will greatly help this council when it comes to balancing its budget next year, but that doesn't prevent us from having to make difficult decisions this year. We're still predicting that we may overspend by nearly £7 million, just over £7 million this financial year, and indeed next year, as anyone who came to any of Philip's Task and Finish groups, or Councillor Thompson's Task and Finish groups, or the members' conference, which I unfortunately had to work during, will know that there is a £9 million pressure for next year. So due to this reprieve, we still will have some risks, but hopefully those risks will be mitigated, but we have difficult decisions ahead. The one thing that I think the government could do, and it's something that Councillor Brown certainly has led on in his conversations with ministers, and something that we as a council will continue to lead on also, is that we know the government have announced plans to reset the local government funding formula. This isn't until 26-27, but that's where councils like this really need to have a voice at the table, because councils like this are unable to raise the same amount of council tax from our residents because we don't have large-scale properties with big council tax bills. So when the government says council tax can go up in local authorities, what that means to Redcar and Cleveland, A, is a very difficult decision because we know the demography of our borough and the socio-economic status of our residents, but B, also we can naturally raise less even if council tax goes up. So we'll continue to pressure government about that. We welcome the 1.3 billion. We'll welcome what our share is when we find exactly what it is, but it doesn't mitigate the fact that we're going to have some difficult decisions moving ahead. But any money the government wants to provide us is more than welcome, as was that 1.3 billion, which we think will be about 3 million for us. So thank you for the question and the chance to elaborate.
Thank you. Got anything else, Councillor Brown?
Oh, no, thank you.
Right, that's it then. Thank you very much. Thanks for everyone attending. The meeting's now closed. Safe journey home, everybody.